I feel really awkward initially starting this. I've been dreading this for the past week. I'm not gonna lie to you.
It
I don't
it
even,
will take a few
It's
times, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. And right now it's just the three of us listening to it. We're only going to
yeah,
post it to the internet for millions to watch later.
yeah. Honestly, I'm really, really excited to tell you all the stories that I do have. So, okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Can You Repeat That? We're your hosts. My name is Leslie. Chantelle.
Okay, I didn't know it
We,
was
we don't
second.
we don't have
I
the
can do
script,
that.
Leslie. We
I
don't know
know,
what
Yeah.
we're
I
supposed to
know,
do.
I know. Okay. So I guess I'll do that exact same thing, but I'll say my name, and then Shanty can say her name or
Okay.
Atlas, and then the other person can, and then we'll go from
Okay.
there. Okay.
Okay,
All
Need a
I'll
little
right.
go
clapboard with
second.
like the take one, take two.
Yeah. Yep. And action. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Can You Repeat That? We're your hosts. My name is Leslie.
My name's Chantelle.
And I am Atlas.
Our podcast focuses on murder, mystery, and history stories. So each couple of weeks, we'll release some sort of story along those lines. I guess we can start. The story I'm going to tell y'all today is about Violet Jessop, aka Miss Unsinkable. Have y'all ever heard about her?
Oh yeah.
You have?
Oh,
I
I
had
have
hmm
never
never.
I had never heard about her ever until I started researching last week.
A lot of she came up when I was first going. Like everyone knows about. Well, I don't know about everyone, but a lot of people know about the unsinkable Molly Brown, who was on the Titanic and a couple other ships that went out from under her. But no, Jessup in my mind gets the title. Well, you know why you've read the story and you're
Yep,
about to. But yeah,
yep.
I'm very familiar with her.
Okay, cool. All right, so if you survived one boat crash, would you get back on another? Because I don't think I would.
I honestly probably would.
Okay, all right. And then if
I
you
have.
survived
So,
another, oh my gosh. All right. Have you gotten back on a boat?
yep.
I wouldn't. That's scary. That's scary. What about if you survived another?
Mm,
Well, I haven't had
tempting
another
fate,
happen yet,
honestly.
so I can't say. But yeah, I figure if I get the second one, that's fate telling me, hey, you need to stop.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, the same can be said about Violet Jessup because she not only survived. Well, I guess actually I'll just start from the beginning. So she was born 10/2, 1887 in Argentina, born to Irish immigrants William and Catherine. Violet was the first of nine, but unfortunately only six children, including herself, were the only ones to survive. And she had a pretty rough start to life. She got tuberculosis, and her doctors only gave her months to live whenever she was a baby. However, she did survive and helped raise her siblings. So, unfortunately, that wouldn't be the end of her bad luck, though, because in her early life, her father passed away due to complications from a surgery whenever she was 15. So, after her father's passing, Violet's mother decided that after all that happened, they should get a fresh start. And they moved over to England, and she was enrolled in Catholic school. During that time, her mom, Catherine, worked as a stewardess on a Royal Mail ship until she became too sick to work. And then Violet ended up going to work for a ship herself to help provide for her family. So she decided to follow her mother's footsteps, like I said, and she became a stewardess on the Majestic.
Wasn't it the Orinoco that was her first? Was it?
She was hired on to the Majestic, but she did work a couple of different liners, I guess is what they would be. Anywho, so Violet, being the OG that she is, she decided to follow her mother's footsteps and she was hired onto the Majestic, but was eventually offered a job as a stewardess with the world famous White Star Line. And in case that's not ringing a bell, White Star Line was a British shipping company with the famous ships such as the Olympic, the Britannic, and drumroll, the Titanic. So I think you may see where the story is going now, Shanty.
Yes, all three of those had wonderful, excellent voyages that just went perfectly.
Absolutely.
Oh no.
So, While researching this, I did learn that at this time in the 1800s, stewardesses were mostly middle-aged women, and it actually caused issues for Violet because she was a really, really pretty girl. So her employers thought that hiring her on would be a disadvantage to her and could possibly cause problems with crew and passengers. So to help her get this job, she actually showed up with no makeup and old clothes, which is kind of insane. You'd think it'd be the other way around, especially, back in the day. I didn't find much information about her time on that liner other than she enjoyed working with Americans and said they treated her more like a person while she was serving them compared to British people. But that may be because she was only on that ship about a year when on September 20th in 1911, the Olympic collided with the HMS Hawke, a warship made to sink other ships by ramming into them.
Oh my
Thankfully,
God.
thankfully this ship was able to make it back to port without sinking, so there were no casualties. The front of the ship that rammed into the ship she was on is on the right, and then the hole in the Olympic is on the left. So, and then I'll also send y'all a picture of her. She's really, really pretty.
Kind of looks like she's mad at me for not taking my medication today.
Yeah.
So fast forward a couple years, and there's a new ship looking for stewardesses to cater to their VIP and first class guests. Y'all have a guess on what that ship may be?
Gonna go with the Titanic.
You are a winner. Yes, it was a Titanic. So Violet boarded the RMS Titanic as a stewardess on April 10th, 1912 at age 24. Kind of funny, but also kind of not funny. She didn't actually want to go on the Titanic, but her family and friends had convinced her that working on the Titanic would be a fun experience.
Wow.
Yeah,
And it just was, wasn't it?
an unforgettable experience for sure.
That is
So-
one way of putting it.
Yep. Violet worked in the first class cabins doing everything such as making beds, arranged flowers, she ran errands for guests, and brought food to the guests. One quote from Jessop's memoir, Titanic Survivor, said, "No aspect of service that was not her or her colleagues' responsibility." So she did everything. She worked 17-hour shifts and was paid £2 per month. So that's $2.50 USD and $3.43 Canadian. I forgot to do the conversion. Is about $143.15 today. So it's not that much, but I will say, so I've been on a couple of cruises myself, and we did ask the people that worked on the ship how long they're on the ship or if it pays well because we were curious and we're nosy. They said that they're on the ships for about 7 months at a time, and a lot of them, they're not paid super well, but they don't have to pay for rent, most of them. They don't have to pay for cars. They don't have to pay for anything like what we would pay for because everything's on the ship. And because they're not home, but for a few months out of the year, they said they actually wouldn't buy houses or rent. They just go home and stay with their parents or family when they were home. So they really don't have to pay for much, at least now. So I'm assuming it was kind of the same back then, but that's just a guess. I didn't do research on that. Before the ship set sail, she brought a copy of a translated Hebrew prayer an Irish lady had given her. The night of the wreck, just like any, Violet would go up to the deck and take in fresh air before going to bed. When she went to sit on her bed, she actually found that prayer and reread it. Ironically, that prayer was to protect her against fire and water. She wasn't fully asleep when the collision happened. She described her state at the time as being comfortably drowsy. Once she was informed of what was happening, she went into action immediately and started helping passengers leave their rooms and gathering anything that they might need before leaving. A quote from her says, "I was ordered up on deck. Calmly, passengers strolled about. I stood at the bulkhead with the other stewardesses, watching the women cling to their husbands before being put into the boats with their children." She was set in lifeboat number 16, and as it was being lowered, someone handed her a baby. Just like,
Oh
"Here,
my God.
take this." It's crazy. She was in the lifeboat for about 8 hours when the rescue team got there and put her and the others on the Carpathia, which was that rescue boat. And at that time, she said, I was still clutching the baby against my hard cork life belt I was wearing when a woman leaped at me and grabbed the baby and rushed off with it. It appeared that she had put it down on the deck of the Titanic when she went off to fetch something, and when she came back, the baby had gone. I was too frozen and numb to think that it's strange that this woman had not stopped to say thank you. So,
Wow.
now, surely you'd think that after surviving a boat collision and a sinking, she would never touch water again, but she does. 4 years later, during World War I, Violet served as a nurse on the Britannic with the British Red Cross. As a hospital ship, she was protected from attack under the Geneva Convention, but there was no promise that this would be honored. German submarines were mostly occupied in the Atlantic, trying to break Britain's blockade, but there were some in the Mediterranean and were known to plant mines along the more popular trade routes. Those on board weren't super worried, though, as this ship seemed to be a lot more prepared than her sister ships. According to PBS, it had a traveling speed of 21 knots, which could be faster if necessary. She could outrun any U-boat, and her builders had designed her to withstand any type of disaster that sunk the Titanic. She had a watertight inner skin running for almost 2/3 of the ship's length, making her 18 inches wider than her two sister ships, and protected her engines and the boiler rooms. 5 of her 17 watertight bulkheads extended as high as the B deck, also known as the bridge deck, 40 feet above the waterline. The rest rose as high as E deck. All the bulkheads had the latest in electrically operated watertight doors, and the plumbing system allowed any watertight compartment to be drained by means of a valve placed well above the waterline. The higher bulkheads were meant to keep her afloat with any 6 of her components flooded. So they tried to make this one unsinkable, especially with the whole Titanic disaster. So Violet is actually insane. So she was preparing a breakfast tray for another nurse that was too sick to eat in the dining room the morning of November 21st in 1916 when the Britannic hit a mine. I imagine she was like, I've been through this before, and just kept doing her own thing, because after she made the food, she brought it to the cabin of the sick nurse and insisted she eat it, helped her get dressed after she ate it, got her to an elevator, then took her to a lifeboat. Then Violet ran back to her room to grab a few things. Any guesses to what she grabbed first? No? It was a toothbrush. Apparently, she cared very much about her dental hygiene, and it was something she wished she had whenever the Titanic had sunk. So I guess she's just really cares about her teeth. So
Wow.
yes, Violet was able to get on a lifeboat, but I don't have this part written down word for word. But from what
read this part. Yep.
yeah, so
It nearly coasted into the ship's propellers as it was going down. So she nearly sunk a fourth one. Actually, no, it did hit it, and she had to
yep.
jump. And I think she hit her head on something as she jumped, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So the captain was, if I'm remembering correctly, the captain was trying to get the boat to the coast, because I don't think that they were that far from it. Anyway, they were trying to get the boat to the coast, so it was still going. But in doing that, it was just causing the ship to fill up with more water. So whenever Violet got in her lifeboat, because the propellers were still going, it pulled the lifeboat down. So she had to jump. But even more craziness, she couldn't swim. So whenever she jumped, propellers pulled her under. She hit her head on the keel of the ship. She described the feeling as, my brain shook like a solid body in a bottle of liquid. Crazy. After she
Fascinating
hit,
imagery right there.
yes. So after she hit her head, she was able to grab onto something, and that's what kept her afloat before someone could come and rescue her. So she did survive the whole ordeal, and after many years of headaches, she went to the doctor and learned that in that moment, she actually fractured her skull. Insane. So after all 3 of these experiences, she did return to the sea and
Oh my
retired.
God.
And she retired from Royal Mail Lines voyages to South America at the age of 63. She moved to the countryside, raised chickens, tended to her garden, and she passed away at the age of 84 in 1971. She did write a book, so you can go and read, everything that she experienced. But isn't that insane? I had never heard that before. And you'd think that someone that survived that amount of things that has to do with one company, she would be more well known.
Yeah, I've never heard of that before.
Yeah. And then I also read that sometime after she got a phone call many, many, many years later. She got a phone call from someone asking if she saved a baby or if she held a baby during the sinking of the Titanic. And she said yes. And the person on the other end of the phone said that was me and then hung up. I don't know if that, we don't know if that was actually the person because I don't believe there was ever a name given to the child that she knew of. So there's not really a way to prove that it was that person, but there's not really a way to prove that it wasn't that person either. So
No, and I do remember when she was actually having her story recorded. I think the man's name was John Graham, who was her biographer. He asked her, was that maybe someone playing a trick on her? And she said, I've never told the story of saving the baby to anyone before you right now. So that to me kind of indicates that it's probably true if she told it to nobody before she told it to the biographer. How else would someone know to call her and say, thank you for saving a baby when the Titanic sunk? That was me.
yeah. So I guess that adds more validity to it. But
Kind of a crazy story, but I don't remember who they are exactly, but there's someone on my dad's side of the family, long ways down the line, obviously, who had tickets to go on the Titanic. They had a family emergency and they never got on the ship.
oh my gosh.
Yep, and they
Isn't
still
it-
have the tickets.
Oh, that's really cool. Isn't it crazy how life works out? Just like the little decisions.
Yep.
Insane. All right. Oh,
You
I
get into
forgot
it.
to say, so my sources for this were the archive, Violet Jessop, the Queen of Sinking Ships, and Mental Floss, 7 Facts About Titanic Survivor Violet Jessop. I also forgot to say any pictures or information that we talk about in this podcast will be posted on our Instagram, CYRT Pod. So if you want to go over there to look, it'll be posted there.
Yeah.
Well, did y'all learn anything? Atlas didn't, because Atlas knew the stories.
Atlas knows all.
Atlas knows too many things already.
Well, I learned things today.
Nice.
The
All
only
right.
thing I still haven't learned and still don't understand is why Molly Brown gets the title Unsinkable when she was on all of one ship. It's like, sit
I don't know.
down, hun. Jessop has survived way more than you and went back until she was in her 60s before she finally got off the ocean.
Yeah.
Sit down, Miss Unsinkable Brown.
Mhm. I don't think I would ever get back on a ship ever again. Probably after the Titanic. Ship hit something,
Yeah,
no one died.
Not only did she go back after the Titanic, she went back on one that got hit by a mine. And then her
Mhm.
lifeboat nearly killed her trying to escape the ship that got hit by a mine. And then she still went back to work for White Line, and then Red Line, and then the Mail Line. And it's, you really love your boats, woman. I'll give you that.
Then the fact that she couldn't swim also trips me up. I think
Think of
after
all
the
that time
Titanic,
working, for multiple ship lines too. You'd think at one point she would have bothered to learn.
you'd think,
Yeah, like
but
after your first mishap, I would be like, I should probably learn how to swim just in case.
Just in case, right? And
I might
survive a
need
second
that at some
then a
point.
third one, then have to jump overboard off your lifeboat to avoid dying.
At that point, I'd be like, okay, this is the universe telling me I need to learn to swim.
Or just stay out of water.
Stay out of water. But she didn't
Yeah.
listen to that part of it.
No.
So.
thank y'all for joining.
No, thank you.
I like telling stories. Am I super amazing at it? Nar. It'll get better, but it's fun.
It is super fun.
Thank you for listening to Can You Repeat That? And we'll see you in 2 weeks.